The story of the Premier League in the 1990s. English football's top tier became the FA Premier League after First Division clubs broke away from the English Football League to form a new competition. 60 matches aired live on Sky Sports as part of a £304 million deal. But the TV station's whole new ball game launch did not please everyone. "It's the most ludicrous and backward decision football has taken," said Manchester United manager Alex Ferguson, furious about Sky Sports' influence on the fixture schedule. Arsenal, Liverpool and final First Division winners Leeds United were among the title favourites. Manchester United were also tipped to challenge 25 years on from their last top-flight title win. In a history-making opening weekend, Sheffield United striker Brian Deane scored the first Premier League goal in a 2-1 win over Manchester United. A day later, Teddy Sheringham netted the first televised Premier League goal in Nottingham Forest's 1-0 victory against Liverpool. Sheringham departed Brian Clough's Nottingham Forest at the end of August to join Tottenham Hotspur in a £2.1 million deal. In another early-season transfer, Liverpool manager Graham Souness allowed Dean Saunders to join Aston Villa for £2.5 million. "He gets goals," Aston Villa manager Ron Atkinson said. "That's his lifeblood. That's what he does well." Saunders quickly formed a lethal strike partnership with Daly and Atkinson, and both men were on target in Aston Villa's 4-2 win over Saunders' former club Liverpool. 10 games into the season, Mike Walker's Norwich City surprisingly led the way, thanks to the goal-scoring feats of summer signing Mark Robins. Kenny Dalglish's newly promoted Blackburn Rovers also mounted a serious title challenge, with Alan Shearer quickly repaying his £3.5 million transfer fee. At the other end of the table, Liverpool's title hopes already looked over, while Nottingham Forest were deep in relegation trouble after a run of 6 consecutive defeats. In October, second-placed Blackburn hammered top-of-the-table Norwich 7-1 to establish themselves as genuine title contenders. Blackburn's success proved controversial due to the financial backing of their owner, Jack Walker. Dubbed the most unpopular man in English football by The Independent, many accused Walker of trying to buy his way to the title. Manchester United, meanwhile, endured a 7-game winless streak and struggled for goals after new signing Dion Dublin suffered a broken leg. A bid for Sheffield Wednesday striker David Hirst was rejected, so Alex Ferguson swooped for Leeds United's polarising French forward Eric Cantona. "The French and the Scots have a great old alliance," Ferguson told Sky Sports. "I'm hoping this is part of a new alliance." With Cantona on board, Manchester United's results improved, and Ferguson's side soon climbed back up the table. The same could not be said for Blackburn, as they were dealt a crushing blow when main man Alan Shearer snapped his right anterior cruciate ligament in a 3-1 win against Leeds on Boxing Day. Shearer's season was over, and so were Blackburn's title hopes. Off the pitch, Wimbledon midfielder Vinnie Jones received a record £20,000 fine due to his involvement in a video entitled "Soccer's Hard Men." The VHS showcased the nasty side of the game, with Jones sharing tips on how to rough up opposition players. "Would you want Gary Lineker in the trenches with you?" Jones asked in one clip, "or would you want Vinnie Jones in the trenches with you? Because, at the end of the day, you know Vinnie Jones will get out the trench and run towards the enemy, whereas I think Gary Lineker would sit in the trench and say, 'After you.'" Wimbledon chairman Sam Hammam banned the video from the club shop and branded Jones a mosquito brain for participating in the project. At the end of December, Manchester United and Aston Villa sat 3 points behind Norwich at the top of the table. Arsenal and Liverpool were having less than impressive seasons, while new signing Mickey Quinn scored 10 goals in 6 games for Coventry City. Nottingham Forest continued to prop up the table, and Howard Wilkinson's Leeds were only 4 points above the relegation zone. In January, Norwich slipped to third place after failing to score for the 5th league game in a row. "It's not going to get easier," Norwich manager Mike Walker told Sky Sports. "So we've got to stand up and be counted. Again, it's not a crisis as far as I'm concerned." The Canaries scored 6 goals in their next 3 games to return to the top of the table. Manchester United remained in the title fight alongside Norwich, with Peter Schmeichel, Gary Pallister, Steve Bruce, Paul Ince, Ryan Giggs, Mark Hughes and Eric Cantona all having stellar seasons. Alex Ferguson's side only lost once in 16 games between November and March, a run that included a 5-0 win over Coventry and a 4-1 victory against Tottenham. Aston Villa kept up their good form too, with Dwight Yorke providing added firepower alongside Dalian Atkinson and Dean Saunders to move Ron Atkinson's side back to the top in March. Elsewhere, Ian Porterfield became the first Premier League manager to be sacked when Chelsea replaced him with David Webb after an 11-game winless run. On the goal-scoring front, Teddy Sheringham scored 10 goals in 8 games for Tottenham to become the clear favourite for the Golden Boot after Alan Shearer's season-ending injury. By the end of March, a run of 4 wins in 5 matches moved Norwich to the top of the table. Aston Villa and Manchester United both had a game in hand over their title rivals, with crucial fixtures still left to play. Nottingham Forest looked on course to make a great escape after an upturn in fortunes, while Oldham Athletic and Middlesbrough were in serious danger of going down. At the top, Norwich's unlikely title challenge came to a halt following 2 defeats in April. After losing 3-1 at home to Manchester United, Mike Walker's side were thrashed 5-1 by Tottenham 4 days later at White Hart Lane. The Premier League became a 2-horse race from that moment on, with Aston Villa and Manchester United battling it out to make history. A pivotal day in the title race came on the 10th of April. Aston Villa faced Coventry, while Manchester United hosted Sheffield Wednesday. John Sheridan gave Wednesday the lead at Old Trafford before Steve Bruce equalised. The game at Villa Park had already finished goalless by the time Bruce popped up with a late winner deep into stoppage time to turn the title race on its head. Manchester United and Aston Villa won their next 2 games before Villa fell to a 3-0 defeat at Blackburn. On the same day, Mark Hughes and Paul Ince scored as Manchester United cemented their place at the top with a 2-0 win at Crystal Palace. With 2 games to go, Aston Villa needed to beat Oldham to keep the title race alive. Nick Henry scored the only goal of the game as Villa lost 1-0, a result that crowned Manchester United as the inaugural winners of the FA Premier League. "We should have taken them to the wire," Aston Villa manager Ron Atkinson told Sky Sports. "I think we've handed it to them on a plate." As Manchester United celebrated their title win with a 3-1 victory over Blackburn, all eyes turned to the bottom of the table. Nottingham Forest's relegation was confirmed after a 2-0 loss at home to Sheffield United. Brian Clough, the club's legendary 2-time European Cup-winning manager, retired at the end of the campaign. Middlesbrough were also relegated after Sheffield United beat Everton 2-0 to secure their own safety, and the final relegation spot went to Crystal Palace after Oldham remarkably won 3 games in 6 days to climb out of the bottom 3. Aston Villa defender Paul McGrath was voted the PFA Players' Player of the Year by his fellow professionals, while Manchester United winger Ryan Giggs won the Young Player of the Year award. The Golden Boot went to Teddy Sheringham, who scored 21 goals for Tottenham and once for Nottingham Forest to top the scoring charts. The final Premier League table confirmed Crystal Palace, Middlesbrough and Nottingham Forest's relegation to Division 1. Leeds, fourth favourites for the title, finished just 2 points above the drop zone. In the top half, 10th-placed Arsenal won 2 cups but struggled in the league, while Norwich pipped Blackburn to a UEFA Cup spot in third. Ultimately, the 1992-93 Premier League season was all about Manchester United. Alex Ferguson's masterful leadership saw the club end a 26-year title wait, setting the stage for 2 decades of dominance over English football. After winning the title in 1992-93, Alex Ferguson bolstered Manchester United's squad with the addition of 21-year-old midfielder Roy Keane from relegated Nottingham Forest. "I was very impressed with the manager," Keane said. "They're going to be around for the next 5 or 10 years winning trophies, and that's what I want to do." Keane, a British record signing for £3.75 million, made an instant impact by scoring twice on his home debut in a 3-0 win over Sheffield United. While it was business as usual for table-topping Manchester United at the start of the campaign, neighbours Manchester City only picked up 1 point from their first 4 games. Peter Reid was sacked as Manchester City manager after a 2-0 loss at home to title challengers Blackburn Rovers. Oxford United boss Brian Horton replaced Reid and won 3 of his first 4 matches in charge. Liverpool, fancied by many to seriously challenge Manchester United, lost 4 games in a row in September, including a 2-0 defeat in the Merseyside derby against Everton. Mark Ward scored Everton's opener after Steve McManaman failed to clear a corner at the near post. Liverpool goalkeeper Bruce Grobbelaar reacted furiously to the goal, shoving McManaman in the face. "And Bruce Grobbelaar going absolutely mad with Steve McManaman," BBC commentator Barry Davies said. "It was a very, very poor clearance, but that reaction is a bit over the top, to put it mildly." The joy of beating Liverpool at Goodison Park was short-lived, as Everton were thumped 5-1 by Norwich City a week later. Ifeanyi Cocu made history by becoming the first player to score 4 goals in the same game in the Premier League era. Ikoku formed a prolific partnership with Chris Sutton, with both men scoring 5 league goals for Norwich in the first 2 months of the season. At the end of September, champions Manchester United were on top thanks to the goal-scoring exploits of talisman Eric Cantona and youngster Lee Sharp. Arsenal bounced back from a 3-0 opening day loss against Coventry City to climb up to second, while Wimbledon and newly promoted Newcastle United also had strong starts. For the second year in a row, Liverpool's hopes of challenging for the Premier League already looked over by October. Top-flight newcomers Swindon Town, managed by John Gorman after Glenn Hoddle's departure to Chelsea, propped up the table after 9 games. In October, Blackburn Rovers striker Alan Shearer showed why he was among the Golden Boot favourites after scoring a hat-trick in a 3-3 draw with Leeds United. The month also saw 18-year-old Robbie Fowler make his mark with 3 goals as Liverpool beat Southampton 4-2 during a 6-game unbeaten run. Arsenal relied on Kevin Campbell and Ian Wright for goals. However, George Graham's side lacked additional firepower and slipped down the table after a turgid run of 4 goalless draws in a row. While Arsenal struggled for consistency, Blackburn emerged as Manchester United's only realistic title threat in the first few months of the season. Kenny Dalglish further strengthened Blackburn's expensively assembled squad by bringing in David Batty from Leeds for £2.75 million. Blackburn also beat Liverpool to the signing of Tim Flowers from Southampton for £2.4 million, a British record fee for a goalkeeper. One of the season's most shocking incidents occurred in the 7th minute of Wimbledon's 1-1 draw at Tottenham in November. Wimbledon striker John Fashanu, known as Fash the Bash due to his aggressive playing style, caught Tottenham defender Gary Mabbott in the face with a reckless elbow. "Gary is a friend of mine and he knows I didn't want to do him," Fashanu was quoted as saying by The Independent, "I'm very sorry, as I always am when anybody is injured." The brutal collision left Mabbott with a broken eye socket and fractured skull. "I resembled John Merrick," Mabbott said, referencing the Elephant Man, a disfigured man who performed at freak shows in the 1800s. "You can't rule out the possibility of a fatality if this goes on," he added. In managerial news, Fashanu's former boss at Wimbledon, Bobby Gould, unexpectedly resigned after Coventry's 5-1 loss at QPR. "Gentlemen, this will be short and sweet," Gould said at a post-match press conference. "I have just informed the players and the chairman that I have resigned. A statement will be made on Monday, and that is all I am going to say." Gould was not the only boss to call it quits. Howard Kendall, Everton's two-time title-winning manager, resigned after the club's board blocked a move for Manchester United forward Dion Dublin. Phil Neal replaced Gould at Coventry, while Kendall's right-hand man Jimmy Gabriel temporarily took charge of Everton. At the top, Manchester United showed no signs of letting their title lead slip away. The champions won 8 games in a row between September and November, including a 3-2 victory in the Manchester derby after going 2 goals down. On Christmas Day, Alex Ferguson's side were already a seemingly uncatchable 12 points clear in first. Leeds, 17th-placed finishers in the 1992-93 season, were among the best of the rest, while the goals of Andy Cole and Peter Beardsley helped Kevin Keegan's Newcastle maintain their good early-season form. Glenn Hoddle's Chelsea found themselves in relegation trouble after a run of just 2 goals in 9 matches, and they were joined in the bottom 3 by Southampton and Hoddle's former club Swindon. January featured 4 managerial changes, starting with Mike Walker leaving Norwich to join out-of-form Everton. "With a little bit of work and attention, I am sure we can return to our rightful place," said Walker, whose former assistant Jimmy Deehan replaced him at Carrow Road. The Norwich hierarchy were less than impressed with Walker's abrupt departure, accusing Everton of illegally approaching the man who led the Canaries into Europe. Elsewhere, Graham Souness resigned as Liverpool manager after the club were knocked out of the FA Cup by Division 1 side Bristol City. Chants of "Souness out" sounded around Anfield after the 1-0 defeat. "The fans have been very patient, but I feel their patience is now running out," said the Scot, who was replaced by his assistant Roy Evans. Southampton also made a change in the dugout, sacking Ian Branfoot and appointing England World Cup hero Alan Ball. In the title race, Blackburn closed the gap on Manchester United after a 12-game unbeaten run between December and February. The prolific Alan Shearer found top form in the winter months, scoring 9 goals in 6 games as Kenny Dalglish's men picked up 32 points from a possible 36. Like Blackburn, Manchester United put together their own impressive unbeaten run. After losing 1-0 to Chelsea in September, Alex Ferguson's side enjoyed a 22-game streak without defeat in the league before losing to the same opposition, and by the same scoreline, in March. By that point, Blackburn's scintillating form meant Manchester United's 12-point lead at Christmas had been cut to just 4. While the Red Devils were still heavy title favourites, an inexplicable act of indiscipline gave Blackburn fans reason to cheer. On March 19th, Eric Cantona received a straight red card after deliberately sinking his studs into the chest of Swindon midfielder John Monker. Manchester United, 2-1 up when the 65th-minute incident occurred, ended up drawing the game 2-2 against the league's bottom team. "He just loses control, and that is totally outrageous," said BBC pundit Alan Hansen, "and he deserves to go off and get banned." 3 days later, Cantona was given his marching orders again in a 2-2 draw with Arsenal. The Frenchman appeared to jump out of the way of a challenge from Tony Adams, but the referee deemed the collision worthy of a second booking. "I don't think he should have been sent off," Arsenal midfielder Paul Merson told the BBC. He's getting a reputation, like Wright he is, but he's a class player. Cantona's back-to-back dismissals resulted in a 5-match ban. Arsenal's draw with Manchester United came after George Graham's men swept aside Ipswich Town 5-1 at Portman Road, with Ian Wright scoring a hat-trick. Wright netted another 3 goals in a 4-0 win at Southampton, as he rubbed shoulders with Blackburn's Alan Shearer and Newcastle's Andy Cole at the top of the scoring charts. Further down the table, Norwich recorded a crowd-pleasing 3-0 win over Mike Walker's new club Everton. However, the Canaries' form plummeted without their former boss, and that victory proved to be their only league win in 18 games. With 6 weeks of the season to go, only Blackburn could catch Manchester United at the top. Newcastle won 6 games in a row, including a 7-1 win against lowly Swindon to continue their fantastic season, while Arsenal boasted the best defensive record in the league. In the bottom half, Glenn Hoddle guided Chelsea away from relegation trouble. Southampton improved under Alan Ball, but still needed more points, and Swindon looked destined for an immediate return to Division 1. On Easter weekend, Blackburn hosted Manchester United in one of the biggest games of the 1993-94 season. Kenny Dalglish started top scorer Alan Shearer and early season signings Tim Flowers and David Batty. Alex Ferguson, meanwhile, selected Mark Hughes in attack in the absence of the suspended Eric Cantona. Blackburn won the match 2-0, courtesy of a double from Shearer, a result that moved Rovers 3 points behind Manchester United with 7 games to play. Off the pitch, Eric Cantona could not stay out of the headlines. The most talked-about man in English football scooped the PFA Players' Player of the Year award at a ceremony on April 10th. "Thank you," a grateful Cantona said. "I would like to thank Manchester United, my manager Alex Ferguson, my coach Brian Kidd, all the players, even those who did not vote for me, for giving me the pleasure to play in English football. Thank you." The PFA Young Player of the Year award went to Newcastle striker Andy Cole. The next day, Cole's fellow Golden Boot contender, Alan Shearer, was on target again as Blackburn beat Aston Villa 1-0. The victory moved Kenny Dalglish's side level on points with Manchester United at the top, but the good feeling at Ewood Park did not last for long. On the same day that Wimbledon shocked Manchester United 1-0, Blackburn lost 3-1 at Southampton and missed out on the chance to go 3 points clear. The following weekend was headlined by the Manchester Derby, which featured the return from suspension of Eric Cantona. The Old Trafford Award winner received a hero's reception, and he repaid the home fans' support with both goals in a 2-0 win over Manchester City. Blackburn could only draw 1-1 at home to QPR, meaning Manchester United were clear favourites for the Premier League crown once again. After weeks of close calls, top spot was finally decided in the first weekend in May. Eric Cantona and Ryan Giggs sealed a 2-1 win for Manchester United at Ipswich, while Blackburn lost 2-1 at Coventry. The defeat at Highfield Road left Rovers 5 points behind Alex Ferguson's side, with only 1 match remaining. "Congratulations to Fergie and Manchester United," Blackburn manager Kenny Dalglish told Sky Sports. "Obviously they've stayed the course better than us, and they've won the title, and they deserve to win it because they got more points than anyone else." In the fight to stay in the Premier League, Swindon's relegation to Division 1 was confirmed after a 4-2 defeat at Wimbledon. Joe Royal's Oldham were also relegated after drawing at Norwich on the last Saturday of the season. A dramatic turn of events saw Everton and Ipswich survive after Chelsea's Mark Stein netted a late winner against Sheffield United, condemning the Blades to the drop. Newcastle's main man Andy Cole finished the season with 34 goals, surpassing the 22 that the previous Golden Boot winner Teddy Sheringham scored in 1992-93. Blackburn's Alan Shearer, Southampton's Matt Letizia, Norwich's Chris Sutton and Arsenal's Ian Wright also beat Sheringham's tally of 22. The final league table saw Swindon finish in last place, having conceded a staggering 100 goals in 42 games. Their former manager Glenn Hoddle led Chelsea to an underwhelming 14th, while Everton ended the campaign in 17th after a difficult few months. Liverpool's season of change resulted in an 8th-placed finish. Newcastle were the big overachievers in 3rd, and Manchester United, for the 2nd year in a row, fought off a late title challenge to end the year as FA Premier League champions. To cap off another season of silverware, Alex Ferguson also led his side to a 4-0 FA Cup final win over Chelsea. At the start of 1994-95, the campaign began with a major restructuring that would change the top of English football for years to come. The Premier League's first 2 seasons were contested by 22 teams. However, league officials wanted to alter the competition by reducing the number of clubs to 20. As a result, 4 teams were relegated from the Premier League in the 1994-95 season instead of the usual 3, while only 2 promotion spots were available for the clubs in Division 1. Determined to close the gap on Manchester United, Blackburn Rovers broke the English transfer record by signing striker Chris Sutton from Norwich City for £5 million. Tottenham Hotspur also made a high-profile purchase, bringing in German World Cup winner Jurgen Klinsmann from Monaco for £2 million. Jurgen is a big signing, said Tottenham manager Ozzy Ardiles. He is one of the best players in the world. Klinsmann quickly proved his worth, scoring 5 goals in his first 4 league games to earn the August Player of the Month award. The new signing, branded a cheat by some sections of the media due to his reputation for diving, made light of the scrutiny by throwing himself to the ground after scoring his first Tottenham goal. Like Klinsmann, Liverpool youngster Robbie Fowler had no problem finding the target. He scored 5 goals in the first month of the season, including a remarkable 4-minute hat-trick in a 3-0 win over Arsenal. Eric Cantona and Paul Ince scored as Manchester United beat Blackburn in the Charity Shield, but Alex Ferguson's side initially struggled to get going in the league. While title rivals Blackburn and Newcastle enjoyed unbeaten starts, Manchester United surprisingly lost at Leeds United and Ipswich Town in September. Newcastle's form was particularly impressive, with Kevin Keegan's men winning 6 matches in a row, despite key player Peter Beardsley missing 4 of those games through injury. 2 months into the campaign, Newcastle and Blackburn looked like genuine title contenders, while Frank Clark's newly promoted Nottingham Forest were the early season surprise package thanks to the goals of Brian Roy and Stan Collymore. The other promoted sides, Leicester City and Crystal Palace, struggled at the bottom. Pressure was also mounting on Everton manager Mike Walker. A beloved figure at previous club Norwich, his decision to leave Carrow Road for Goodison Park was looking worse by the game. In a month of title race tussles, October saw Newcastle and Blackburn draw 1-1 after a late Tim Flower's own goal. On the same weekend, Manchester United fell to a 1-0 defeat at Hillsborough after former Red Devils transfer target David Hirst netted for Sheffield Wednesday. Alex Ferguson's men briefly dropped to 5th place and looked a shadow of the team that won back-to-back titles. However, their fortunes soon changed thanks to 8 wins from 9 games, including a crucial 4-2 victory against Blackburn and a 5-0 derby triumph over Manchester City. In the relegation battle, Mike Walker's Everton finally picked up their first win thanks to a Gary Ablett goal against West Ham. The victory was not enough to satisfy the Everton board, though, and Walker found himself out of a job following a goalless draw at former club Norwich. "It would be irresponsible for the current situation to continue," said Everton chairman Peter Johnson. It is imperative that Everton retains its position in the top flight. As Joe Royle replaced Mike Walker, 5 other managerial changes occurred in the build-up to Christmas. The biggest dismissal came at Aston Villa, where Ron Atkinson was sacked after Villa fell from title challengers to relegation candidates in the space of 18 months. Leicester's Brian Little replaced Atkinson, while Ipswich's John Lyall, QPR's Jerry Francis and Tottenham's Ozzy Ardiles also left their clubs. In December, one of the standout results saw Nottingham Forest end Manchester United's 9-game unbeaten run with a 2-1 win at Old Trafford. Newcastle, meanwhile, endured a difficult run between November and January. Kevin Keegan's side produced entertaining football, but a 3-1 win over Leicester proved to be their only victory in 11 games. While Newcastle's form dipped, Blackburn could not stop scoring thanks to main man Alan Shearer and the additional firepower of summer signing Chris Sutton. The goal-scoring duo, dubbed the SAS, helped Rovers pick up 11 wins from 12 games between October and January. On Christmas Day, Kenny Dalglish's Blackburn topped the table with a 2-point lead over Manchester United. Jimmy Deehan's Norwich were flying high in 7th place almost a year on from Mike Walker's departure, while Arsenal's days as title contenders under George Graham seemed to be over. In the relegation battle, Ipswich were already 9 points from safety after winning just 3 of their 19 games. Everton, Aston Villa and Leicester occupied the other relegation places. In January, Newcastle fans were dealt a major blow when star striker Andy Cole joined title rivals Manchester United for £7 million after a fallout with manager Kevin Keegan. "If it doesn't work, I know what the implications are," Keegan told a group of perplexed supporters outside St James Park. Newcastle chairman Sir John Hall also offered words of reassurance to the Toon Army faithful. "We will reinvest in the squad," he told the BBC. "That's what we're going to do." Newcastle signed promising midfielder Keith Gillespie for £1 million as part of the deal. With Andy Cole on board and emerging talent Paul Scholes breaking through, things were looking up for Manchester United. Alex Ferguson's men were hot on Blackburn's heels at the top after Eric Cantona scored the only goal in a 1-0 win over Rovers at Old Trafford. In the next match, however, an astonishing moment of madness spectacularly derailed Manchester United's title chances. On January 25th, Eric Cantona received a red card after kicking Crystal Palace defender Richard Shaw. As he exited the pitch, Cantona launched himself over an advertising board before kung fu kicking and punching a fan in the crowd. Manchester United kitman Norman Davis and goalkeeper Peter Schmeichel quickly raced over to usher Cantona down the tunnel. David May put Manchester United ahead 10 minutes after the incident before Gareth Southgate scored to earn Palace a point. The kung fu kick initially landed Cantona with a 2-week prison sentence before the punishment was changed to a 120-hour community service order. He also received an 8-month ban from football and a £30,000 fine. When reporters gathered to hear Cantona explain his actions, Manchester United's number 7 responded in a way only he can. "When the seagulls," Cantona began before taking a sip of water, "follow the trawler, it's because they think sardines will be thrown into the sea. Thank you very much." The controversies didn't end there. The Premier League found George Graham guilty of accepting an illegal payment from an agent over transfer dealings. The Scot was given a 1-year ban from football and left his job as Arsenal manager. On the pitch, the Gunners lost 4 games in a row under caretaker boss Stuart Houston and became stuck in mid-table mediocrity. Manchester United, without Eric Cantona for 8 months, suffered a shock 1-0 loss at Everton, but it did not take long for Alex Ferguson's side to bounce back. A week later, the Red Devils set a new Premier League record by beating lowly Ipswich 9-0 at Old Trafford. Andy Cole scored 5 of the 9 goals to instantly cement his status as a United fan favourite. As April approached, Blackburn held an impressive but not uncatchable lead of 6 points over Manchester United at the top. Further down the table, Nottingham Forest's fantastic season continued, while Arsenal were just 6 points above the relegation zone after a disastrous run. In the bottom half, Aston Villa and Everton were creeping up the table, Norwich suddenly found themselves battling against the drop, and Ipswich and Leicester looked certain to go down. The biggest away win of the season came at Hillsborough, where Brian Roy and Stan Collymore were at the double as Nottingham Forest thrashed Sheffield Wednesday 7-1. Elsewhere in April, Leicester's one-season stay in the top flight ended after West Ham's 3-0 win against Wimbledon. Ipswich's Premier League journey was also over after Everton's 2-0 victory over Newcastle consigned George Burley's men to relegation. Aston Villa's struggles continued as they failed to score for 8 consecutive games, while Gary Megson replaced John Deehan as manager of plummeting Norwich with just 5 matches remaining. As the entire bottom half fought against relegation, only Blackburn and Manchester United could realistically win the league. Rovers went 8 points clear with a 1-0 win at QPR, prompting Alex Ferguson to all but rule his side out of the title race. "You just have to hope there is a miracle," the United manager said. A miracle looked on the cards when Blackburn fell to a shock 3-2 home defeat against Manchester City, followed by a 2-0 loss at West Ham 2 weeks later. Suddenly, after a run of 7 points from 5 games, Blackburn's lead over rejuvenated Manchester United had been cut to just 2 points heading into the final day. And so, the stage was set. With 41 games played, Blackburn travelled to Liverpool on 89 points, while Manchester United visited West Ham on 87 points. If Manchester United won their game, they would need Liverpool to win or draw against Blackburn to capture the title. If Manchester United failed to win, the Premier League trophy would be heading to Ewood Park. The afternoon got off to the perfect start for Blackburn, with Alan Shearer scoring against Liverpool in the 20th minute. 11 minutes later, Michael Hughes netted for West Ham against Manchester United, making Rovers heavy favourites to claim top spot. After the half-time break, a twist in the tale saw Brian McClare equalise for Manchester United at West Ham. John Barnes then scored for Liverpool against Blackburn, meaning 1 goal in the final 26 minutes could decide the title. Manchester United peppered the West Ham target with shot after shot, knowing 1 goal would move them above Blackburn into first place. But Hammer's goalkeeper Ludek Miklosko repeatedly kept the Red Devils out. Back at Anfield, Jamie Redknapp put Liverpool 2-1 ahead against Blackburn in the final minute. United, meanwhile, could not find a way past the inspirational Miklosko, and after a long, hard season, the title race was over. Blackburn finished on 89 points, 1 point ahead of Manchester United, and Kenny Dalglish's side won the Premier League for the first time. In the bottom half of the table, Norwich joined Leicester and Ipswich in going down, after losing 2-1 at Leeds. The 4th and final relegation spot was occupied by Crystal Palace, who lost 3-2 on the final day at Newcastle. Coventry, managed by Ron Atkinson for the last 3 months of the campaign, climbed away from danger alongside Atkinson's former club Aston Villa, while Arsenal's dismal year ended in a bottom-half finish. The top half saw surprise package Nottingham Forest finish 3rd. Jurgen Klinsmann's goals helped Tottenham finish 7th, while Liverpool and Leeds qualified for the UEFA Cup after Newcastle struggled without Andy Cole. In the end, the financial backing of millionaire Jack Walker and the expert guidance of manager Kenny Dalglish proved to be a winning formula. Blackburn Rovers claimed the coveted Premier League crown following a thrilling final day, with Chris Sutton and Player of the Season Alan Shearer playing key roles in the historic triumph. The opening weekend of the 1995-96 Premier League season began with Manchester United suffering a surprise 3-1 defeat at Aston Villa. Alex Ferguson allowed Paul Ince, Andrei Kanchelskis and Mark Hughes to leave Old Trafford during the summer. In their place, he put his faith in youth by relying on up-and-coming youngsters David Beckham, Gary Neville, Nicky Butt, Paul Scholes and Phil Neville. Former Liverpool defender Alan Hansen was not impressed with Ferguson's bold strategy. "The trick is always buy when you're strong, so he needs to buy players," Hansen said on Match of the Day. "You can't win anything with kids." As doubts were raised about Manchester United's title credentials, the same could be said for reigning champions Blackburn Rovers. Kenny Dalglish stepped aside as Blackburn manager to become the club's director of football. Dalglish's replacement, Ray Harford, guided Rovers to only one win in their first 6 league games. During that run, Lee Sharpe and David Beckham were on target as Manchester United bounced back from the Villa defeat with a morale-boosting 2-1 win at Ewood Park. Howard Wilkinson's Leeds started the campaign with 3 wins in a row, including a 1-0 victory over Liverpool. The only goal was scored by Tony Yeboah, whose thunderous 25-yard volley bounced over the line after crashing off the underside of the crossbar. Not content with winning the August Goal of the Month award, the Ghanaians scooped the prize again during a hat-trick hero performance as Leeds beat Wimbledon 4-2 in September. Yeboah chested the ball down 35 yards from goal before controlling it with his left knee. He then sidestepped a challenge before launching an unstoppable right-footed strike into the top right corner off the crossbar from 20 yards. "Even by his standards, breathtakingly brilliant," exclaimed Sky Sports commentator Martin Tyler. All eyes were on the big-money summer recruits in the first few months of the 1995-96 season. Liverpool paid £8.5 million for Nottingham Forest's Stan Collymore, while new Arsenal manager Bruce Rioch brought in Dennis Bergkamp from Inter for £7.5 million. Bergkamp initially struggled for form, prompting Collymore's former Nottingham Forest teammate, Stuart Pearce, to make a bold statement about the 2 deals. "I would have taken Stan Collymore ahead of Bergkamp even for £1 million more," Pearce said. "Liverpool have got a better deal than Arsenal." 8 games into the season, Kevin Keegan's Newcastle United were flying high at the top thanks to the goals of Les Ferdinand and the midfield magic of summer signing David Ginola. Brian Little's Aston Villa improved significantly after narrowly avoiding relegation, while Brian Robson's newly promoted Middlesbrough racked up an impressive 15 points from 8 matches. In the bottom half, Blackburn were already 14 points behind the league leaders after their title defence got off to an abysmal start. Manchester City and Bolton Wanderers also looked set for a season of struggle. In October, one of the most anticipated matches of the season saw Manchester United host title rivals Liverpool. Eric Cantona, banned for 8 months after kicking a fan in January, made his long-awaited return in front of his adoring fans at Old Trafford. The high-collared Frenchman lined up alongside Andy Cole in attack, while Ian Rush partnered Robbie Fowler up top for Liverpool. Fowler grabbed 2 goals for the visitors, but the day was all about Cantona. Manchester United's number 7 wasted no time in getting himself back on the score sheet and back among the headlines as he scored the equaliser from the penalty spot in a 2-2 draw. Alex Ferguson's side endured a 5-game winless run between November and December, allowing Newcastle to extend their lead at the top. Kevin Keegan's men went 11 matches in a row without losing, a run that included a thumping 6-1 win over Wimbledon. Les Ferdinand, a £6 million summer addition from QPR, proved to be one of the signings of the season. Newcastle also survived a tricky set of November fixtures against Liverpool, Blackburn, Aston Villa and Leeds to cement their status as title favourites. By Christmas Day, Newcastle were 10 points clear at the top of the table. Dubbed the Entertainers, Keegan's free-flowing side were fun to watch and viewed as many fans' second team due to their attacking playing style. Further down the league, a shock 7-0 win over Nottingham Forest helped Blackburn climb the table. However, the champions were still nowhere near the title picture. In the relegation zone, a 14-game winless run meant Wimbledon found themselves battling to stay in the top flight alongside Coventry and Bolton. 2 days after Christmas, Manchester United closed the gap at the top to 7 points after beating Newcastle 2-0 at Old Trafford. Andy Cole scored against his former club before Roy Keane added a second. The Red Devils' joy was short-lived, as a 4-1 New Year's Day loss at Tottenham severely dented their title hopes. Meanwhile, Newcastle bounced back from the Old Trafford defeat by winning 5 consecutive matches to go 12 points clear with 15 games to go. Kevin Keegan also strengthened his squad by signing Colombian striker Faustino Asprilla. Asprilla joined from Parma for £6.7 million and arrived with a big reputation. Elsewhere at the top, a 14-game unbeaten run between November and March put Liverpool on the edge of the title picture. Robbie Fowler added to his glowing reputation by scoring a hat-trick against Arsenal for the second season in a row. He also found the net twice in a scintillating 5-0 win over Leeds. Liverpool looked a long way off being championship contenders in the first 3 Premier League seasons, but Roy Evans had them looking like the real deal again. After an early season wobble, Alex Ferguson's Manchester United kids found form at the perfect time. They hammered struggling Bolton 6-0 during a run of 11 victories in 12 games between January and April. The winning streak also saw the 2-time Premier League champions pick up a vital 3 points against Newcastle, with man of the moment Eric Cantona scoring the only goal in a 1-0 away win. Newcastle only picked up 4 points in 5 games heading into April, leading many to question whether the signing of Faustino Asprilla was really worth it. With 2 months to go, a fascinating title race saw Manchester United lead the way by 3 points. Newcastle still had 2 games in hand over the Red Devils, meaning the title was in their own hands. In the bottom half, Leeds and Middlesbrough dropped down the table after promising starts to the campaign. Ron Atkinson's Coventry were in serious danger of going down, while perennial strugglers Southampton relied on Matt Le Tissier to keep them above the drop zone. In April, Liverpool hosted Newcastle in a season-defining battle between third and second. Liverpool took an early lead through Young Player of the Year Robbie Fowler before goals from Player of the Year Les Ferdinand and David Ginola turned the game around. Fowler equalised after the break before Faustino Asprilla put Newcastle back in front. In a pulsating game, Stan Collymore made the score 3-3 in the 67th minute before grabbing another in added time to earn the points for Liverpool. Kevin Keegan slumped over the ad boards, knowing Newcastle's title hopes were decreasing week by week. Manchester United continued their march towards the title with a 1-0 win over Leeds. The visitors were forced to play defender Lucas Radebe in goal for 73 minutes after Mark Beanie's red card. After the game, Alex Ferguson questioned why 10-man Leeds produced such an impressive performance against his side compared to other opponents. "They're cheating their manager, that's all it is," Ferguson told Sky Sports. "Of course, when they come to Newcastle, you wait and see the difference. It's sad to say that, but I'm very disappointed in Leeds." Ferguson also implied Nottingham Forest might go easy on Newcastle in another upcoming fixture because the 2 teams were due to face each other in Stuart Pearce's testimonial. Alex Ferguson's digs sparked a furious reaction from Kevin Keegan on Sky Sports after Newcastle beat Leeds 1-0 to remain in the title race. When you do that with footballers like he said about Leeds, and when you do things like that about a man like Stuart Pearce, I've kept really quiet, but I'll tell you something. He went down in my estimation when he said that. We have not resorted to that. But I'll tell you, you can tell him now, he'll be watching it, we're still fighting for this title, and he's got to go to Middlesbrough and get something, and I'll tell you, honestly, I will love it if we beat them. Love it. Manchester United's mission to go to Middlesbrough and get something proved rather successful. On the last day of the season, Alex Ferguson's men won 3-0, while Newcastle could only draw 1-1 against Tottenham. As a result, Manchester United clinched the Premier League title by 4 points. Elsewhere, a thrilling final day saw Manchester City go down after a 2-2 draw against a Liverpool side whose form petered out towards the end of the season. The final Premier League table confirmed Manchester City's relegation to Division 1 alongside QPR and Bolton. Middlesbrough and Leeds had disappointing ends to the season, while Glenn Hoddle left 11th place Chelsea to become England manager. In the top half, Blackburn finished 7th thanks to the goals of Alan Shearer. Brian Little guided Aston Villa to an impressive 4th-placed finish, and Alex Ferguson's media mind games and shrewd leadership helped Manchester United fight off the challenge of Newcastle to finish first. To round off the season, Eric Cantona scored the only goal as the Red Devils beat Liverpool in the FA Cup final to complete the league and cup double. When all was said and done, the 1995-96 campaign proved without a shadow of a doubt that Manchester United could indeed win something with kids. Ahead of the 1996-97 season, prolific striker Alan Shearer joined boyhood club Newcastle United from Blackburn Rovers for a world record £15 million. This signing is for the people of Newcastle, manager Kevin Keegan said. It just shows you the ambition of Newcastle United. We are the biggest thinking team in Europe now. Earlier in the summer, Manchester United offered £12 million plus Andy Cole in a bid to sign Shearer. However, Blackburn rejected the offer. Shearer did not get off to the best of starts in a Newcastle shirt, as the 1995-96 Premier League runners-up lost 4-0 in the Charity Shield against Manchester United. The first weekend of the season saw Fabrizio Ravanelli score a hat-trick on his Middlesbrough debut in a 3-3 draw with Liverpool. The £7 million signing from Juventus became an instant fan favourite on Teesside, but his opening day heroics were somewhat overshadowed by a certain David Beckham. Manchester United led Wimbledon 2-0 when Beckham received the ball from Brian McClare inside his own half. The young midfielder looked up, spotted Wimbledon goalkeeper Neil Sullivan off his line, and let fly with a right-footed shot from halfway. Sullivan backpedalled and reached out a hand in an attempt to stop the audacious effort, but it was too late. The ball nestled into the empty net, leaving Sullivan red-faced and Beckham with a career-defining goal on his resume at the age of 21. In managerial news, Ruud Gullit replaced New England boss Glenn Hoddle at Chelsea. Graham Souness took over at Southampton, and Leeds appointed George Graham after sacking Howard Wilkinson. The most notable change came at Arsenal, where the relatively unknown Arsene Wenger replaced caretaker boss Stuart Houston after Bruce Rioch's exit. Wenger joined the Gunners from Japanese club Nagoya Grampus 8, prompting many to question whether he could adjust to the Premier League. 2 months into the season, Liverpool and Manchester United were the only unbeaten teams. Newcastle and Arsenal also looked like title contenders, while Wimbledon and newly promoted Leicester enjoyed promising starts to the campaign. In the bottom half, fellow promoted clubs Derby and Sunderland recorded 2 wins each after 8 games. Elsewhere, George Graham had a tough task to turn Leeds' fortunes around, and Blackburn were in serious relegation trouble after Alan Shearer's 4-goal-filled years at Ewood Park came to an end. While Alan Shearer's former team struggled, his new club made an emphatic title race statement with a 5-0 win over Manchester United. Philippe Albert rounded off the victory with an exquisite chip as Kevin Keegan's entertainers made amends for their 4-0 Charity Shield loss against the same opposition 2 months earlier. Manchester United's first defeat of the season was followed by a humbling 6-3 loss at Southampton. Eyal Berkovic and Egil Ostenstad both scored twice as Graham Souness Saints produced one of the most shocking upsets of the campaign. The Red Devils' bad run continued when Ruud Gullit's Chelsea came away from Old Trafford with a 2-1 win, consigning Alex Ferguson's side to a third successive loss. Suddenly, after 3 Premier League triumphs in 4 seasons, Manchester United no longer looked like title favourites. Arsenal, meanwhile, began the Arsene Wenger era with a bang. In the Frenchman's first league game in charge, the Gunners beat struggling Blackburn 2-0, courtesy of 2 Ian Wright goals. Wenger implemented several changes behind the scenes at Arsenal, most notably to the players' diets. He encouraged the team to chew food slowly and banned them from eating chocolate. Before the Blackburn game, players reacted to the ban with good humour. "We want our Mars bars back," the squad chanted on the coach to Ewood Park. Elsewhere, Southampton named new signing Ali Dyer on the bench for the visit of Leeds in November after a short trial. Dyer, believed to be the cousin of World Player of the Year George Weah, replaced Saints midfielder Matt Le Tissier after 32 minutes. Graham Souness was less than impressed with Dyer's display and substituted him in the 85th minute of the 2-0 defeat. It later turned out that Dyer was not an exciting prospect, nor was he the cousin of George Weah. Due to an injury crisis, Souness took a gamble on signing Southampton's number 33 and quickly realised how bad he was. Needless to say, Southampton released Dyer when the truth emerged. On Merseyside, Robbie Fowler scored 4 goals as Liverpool thumped Middlesbrough 5-1 at Anfield. The victory helped ensure Roy Evans' men were in top spot on Christmas Day. Manchester United and Newcastle stayed in the title race as January neared, but both teams had some catching up to do after an inconsistent couple of months. Wimbledon's surprising 14-game unbeaten league run ended with a 5-0 loss at Aston Villa, while things were looking up for Chelsea after signing Italian playmaker Gianfranco Zola from Parma. In the bottom half, Tony Parks replaced Ray Harford as Blackburn boss. Stuart Pearce became player-manager of bottom-of-the-table Nottingham Forest, and Gordon Strachan took on the same role at Coventry after Ron Atkinson became the club's director of football. Newcastle climbed the table after Christmas with a 7-1 win over Tottenham and a 3-0 victory against Leeds. Despite the club's upturn in fortunes, Kevin Keegan shockingly resigned as Newcastle manager. "It was my decision, and my decision alone to resign," Keegan said. "I feel I have taken the club as far as I can, and that it would be in the best interests of all concerned if I resigned now." Keegan also told The Sun that the elation he felt during the 7-1 win over Tottenham meant nothing when he saw the pain on the face of Spurs manager Gerry Francis. "I knew that was it," Keegan said. "When you feel like that, you have to get out." Kenny Dalglish, Alan Shearer's manager during Blackburn's 1994-95 title-winning season, replaced Keegan at St James Park. Newcastle's north-east neighbours, Middlesbrough, were also at the centre of some unexpected news in January. The previous month, Middlesbrough postponed their match against Blackburn with 24 hours' notice after 23 players fell ill. The Premier League took exception to the postponement and deducted Middlesbrough 3 points, throwing Brian Robson's side further into relegation trouble. At the top, Manchester United emerged as title favourites again after going 16 league games without defeat between November and March, a run that included a 2-1 win over rivals Arsenal at Highbury. In another hotly contested title race encounter, Robbie Fowler netted a late winner as Liverpool beat Newcastle in a 4-3 Anfield Classic for the second year in a row. 2 weeks later, Roy Evans's side all but ended Arsenal's title hopes with a 2-1 away win. The match featured an impressive act of sportsmanship from Robbie Fowler, who admitted he should not have been awarded a penalty after going down under the challenge of Arsenal goalkeeper David Seaman. Seaman saved Fowler's subsequent spot kick before Jason McAteer scored the follow-up. As April approached, Manchester United led Liverpool at the top by 3 points. Arsenal and Newcastle's title hopes appeared to be over, while low-scoring Leeds moved up the table under George Graham after 3 consecutive 1-0 wins. Middlesbrough were hovering above the relegation zone after their 3-point deduction. Graham Souness's Southampton were in trouble after 3 wins in 20 games. And Dave Watson took temporary charge of Everton after Joe Royle resigned. During the season run-in, Paolo One-Chop was among the scorers as Derby shocked Manchester United 3-2 at Old Trafford. After the match, Alex Ferguson challenged his players to find form in the last 6 games of the campaign. He also snapped back at Arsene Wenger after the Arsenal manager said he wanted the season to be extended due to fixture congestion. He's come from Japan, and he's now telling everyone in England how to organise their football, Ferguson told Sky Sports. I think he should keep his mouth shut, firmly shut. Manchester United went unbeaten in their remaining 6 games, winning 3 and drawing 3. Their closest challengers, Liverpool, struggled to keep up at the top, picking up only 5 points from their last 5 matches. The title race more or less ended when Manchester United came away from Anfield with a 3-1 win. 3 weeks later, Wimbledon's 2-1 victory over Liverpool and Newcastle's goalless draw at West Ham meant Alex Ferguson's side could no longer be caught. For the 4th time in 5 years, the Red Devils were champions of England. A close relegation battle saw Blackburn and Southampton survive after difficult seasons. Coventry also stayed up at the expense of Middlesbrough, who would have finished 14th had it not been for their 3-point deduction. Sunderland and Nottingham Forest also went down. In the top half, Manchester United's first-placed finish was tougher to achieve than the final league table might suggest. Their 3 title rivals all finished on 68 points, well short of the kind of tally needed to claim the Premier League trophy. The 1996-97 season featured several unexpected moments, from Ali Dyer's Southampton cameo to Kevin Keegan's resignation, but the biggest shocker of the lot was saved for last. Eric Cantona, Manchester United's heroic number 7, retired from football at the age of 30. It's a sad day for United, Alex Ferguson said at a press conference. He's been a fantastic player for us in the 4.5 years he's been with us. Cantona scored 82 goals in 185 games for the champions, cementing his status as a club legend and Premier League icon. Ahead of the 1997-98 season, Premier League clubs made several high-profile signings. One of the most expensive deals saw Aston Villa splash out £7 million for Liverpool's Stan Collymore. Les Ferdinand, Mark Overmars and Paolo Di Canio were also on the move, while former Manchester United midfielder Paul Ince controversially joined the Red Devils' biggest rivals Liverpool. Another notable summer signing, Teddy Sheringham, faced his former club Tottenham in his first Premier League game for Manchester United. Sheringham missed a penalty in the match, but Alex Ferguson's side ended up winning 2-0 to spare the England internationals' blushes. Chelsea striker Gianluca Vialli was one of the early stars of the season, scoring 4 goals in a 6-0 away win over Danny Wilson's newly promoted Barnsley. 3 days later, Dennis Bergkamp was back in the headlines after scoring a hat-trick for Arsenal against Leicester. The Dutchman's third goal, a cushioned finish into the far corner after an immaculate touch to escape Matt Elliott, was among the best of the campaign. Pundits expected Manchester United and Newcastle to challenge at the top once again. However, both clubs were dealt injury blows that would derail their title chances. Newcastle striker Alan Shearer was ruled out for 6 months after suffering an ankle injury in pre-season. Meanwhile, Roy Keane missed the rest of the campaign after tearing his ACL in Manchester United's 1-0 loss at Leeds in September. Keane sustained the injury while running for the ball with Alf-Inge Haaland. Believing Keane faked the injury, the Leeds midfielder raced over to the Irishman and yelled at him as he lay on the ground. 2 months into the season, Arsene Wenger's unbeaten Arsenal led the way. Martin O'Neill's Leicester also had an impressive start, while a 7-2 win over Sheffield Wednesday proved Blackburn were legitimate challengers again under Roy Hodgson. In the bottom half, Crystal Palace had the best start of the 3 promoted sides. Fellow Premier League new boys Bolton and Barnsley struggled for goals. Sheffield Wednesday possessed exciting players such as Benito Carboni and Paolo Di Canio, but their leaky defence cost them dearly. A 6-1 loss at Manchester United spelled the end for Wednesday manager David Pleat, who was replaced by experienced boss Ron Atkinson. Atkinson oversaw an immediate turnaround for the Yorkshire club. They won 4 consecutive games after Pleat's departure, including a 2-0 victory over Arsenal. That defeat at Hillsborough came at a bad time for Arsenal. Arsene Wenger's men had just beaten Manchester United 3-2 in an exciting game at Highbury, but a run of only 8 points from 8 games saw the Gunners slip down the table. As Arsenal's title hopes faded, neighbours Tottenham were suddenly involved in a relegation battle. Christian Gross replaced Spurs boss Jerry Francis after 1 win in 10 games, but his appointment did not have the desired effect. Gross's Tottenham lost 6-1 at home to Chelsea and 4-0 away at Coventry. In need of a hero, Spurs re-signed German striker Jürgen Klinsmann on loan from Sampdoria for the rest of the season. By Christmas Day, Manchester United had extended their lead at the top to 4 points. Roy Hodgson's Blackburn, Ruud Gullit's Chelsea and George Graham's Leeds were also in the title picture. Arsenal, in 6th place after a disappointing run, already looked out of the title race. Barnsley were the bottom team at Christmas, while Tottenham and Everton were in desperate need of points. Sheffield Wednesday found themselves 2 points above the drop zone thanks to Ron Atkinson's impact in the dugout. In February, Chelsea stunned fans by sacking player-manager Ruud Gullit after a disagreement over a new contract. "What is the reason why you didn't go on with me?" Gullit questioned at a press conference. "I would like to have an answer. Why did it happen? Because the money is not the real reason." Gianluca Vialli took over as player-manager with Chelsea, second in the table and firmly in the title race. Elsewhere at the top, Manchester United lost 3 out of 4 games after Christmas, but quickly bounced back to go 11 points clear. Alex Ferguson's side looked uncatchable in first place, prompting Betfred to pay out early on the Red Devils winning the title. Little did the bookmaker know what was to follow. Arsenal beat Manchester United 1-0 at Old Trafford during an 18-game unbeaten run. Arsene Wenger's side constantly had games in hand due to a backlog of fixtures, meaning Manchester United had to look over their shoulders throughout the second half of the campaign. "Arsenal are in a very good position now," Alex Ferguson told Sky Sports. "If they do win their games in hand, they go ahead of us. But, as you'll find out, and they will find out, they will start dropping points towards the end of the season. There's no question about that. It's inevitable." At the end of March, Manchester United were 3 points clear of Arsenal, but Arsene Wenger's second-place team had 2 games in hand. Further down the table, Chelsea fell away from the title race after losing 6 games out of 8. In the fight for survival, all 3 promoted clubs, Barnsley, Bolton and Crystal Palace, occupied the bottom 3 places with 7 games of the season to go. Newcastle, tipped to challenge for the title, slumped to 15th after winning 2 of their last 18 league matches. Manchester United manager Alex Ferguson predicted an Arsenal slip-up in the title run-in, but he was sadly mistaken. The Gunners won all 5 of their April League games, including a 5-0 victory over Wimbledon. Manchester United could only draw 1-1 at home to Liverpool and Newcastle in an 8-day span that saw Arsenal finally overtake their rivals at the top. The title race was decided on the 3rd of May when Arsenal ran out 4-0 winners against relegation-threatened Everton at Highbury. Tony Adams, the club's inspirational captain, scored the 4th goal as the Gunners wrapped up the title with a record 10th league win in a row. In doing so, Arsene Wenger became the first foreign manager to lift the Premier League trophy. With the title race over, the final day drama revolved around the relegation battle. Before the last day, Crystal Palace were sent back to Division 1 after losing 3-0 at Manchester United, while Barnsley's relegation was confirmed after falling to a 1-0 defeat at Leicester. Going into the final day, 18th-placed Everton hosted Coventry, knowing they had to better Bolton's result at Chelsea to stand any chance of survival. Gareth Farrelly got the Toffees off to the perfect start with a 7th-minute goal. In the second half, Chelsea took the lead against Bolton through Gianluca Vialli to further solidify Everton's spot in 17th. However, a late twist set up a nervy finish at both Goodison Park and Stamford Bridge. Dion Dublin equalised for Coventry in the 89th minute, meaning one more goal for Coventry or a Bolton equaliser at the Bridge would send Everton to Division 1. In scarcely believable scenes, Chelsea fans, who wanted Everton to go down, booed their own team as Gustavo Poyet set up Jody Morris to score a 2nd for the Blues in added time. As a result, Bolton were relegated and Everton survived by the skin of their teeth. The final league table saw the 3 promoted clubs relegated back to Division 1. Newcastle and Tottenham only finished 4 points above the drop zone after disappointing seasons. In the top half, Arsenal ended the campaign 1 place and 1 point above Manchester United, thanks to their stunning 10-game winning run. Dennis Bergkamp, Mark Overmars, Patrick Vieira and Tony Adams were among the stars as Arsene Wenger inspired the Gunners to title glory. The champions also beat Newcastle 2-0 in the FA Cup final to complete the league and cup double. The 1998-99 season began with 3 intriguing managerial changes. Barnsley's Danny Wilson replaced Ron Atkinson at Sheffield Wednesday, Walter Smith took over at Everton after Howard Kendall resigned, and Liverpool made the bold decision to appoint Gerard Houllier as co-manager alongside Roy Evans. Newcastle also made a change in the dugout, bringing in former Chelsea boss Ruud Gullit as a replacement for Kenny Dalglish just 2 games into the season. On the pitch, Alan Kirbishley's newly promoted Charlton Athletic got off to a flying start in their first Premier League campaign. The Addicks held Newcastle and Arsenal to goalless draws in August, while Clive Mendonca scored a hat-trick in a 5-0 win over Southampton. The exciting games kept coming in September, most notably at Highbury, where champions Arsenal beat Manchester United 3-0 to lay down a marker in the title race. Another enthralling encounter saw Tor Andre Flo score twice as Gianluca Vialli's Chelsea came from behind to beat Blackburn 4-3 at Ewood Park. One of the season's most shocking incidents occurred at Hillsborough on September 26th. Arsenal defender Martin Keown grabbed Paolo Di Canio's shirt after a tussle between Patrick Vieira and Wim Jonk. The Sheffield Wednesday forward retaliated by pushing Keown in the face, prompting referee Paul Alcock to send both men off. Furious with the decision, Di Canio shoved Alcock in the chest. The official lost balance and stumbled backwards before comically falling over. Moments later, Nigel Winterburn berated Di Canio as he left the pitch. The feisty Italian raised his fist as though he was set to strike Winterburn in the face, causing the left-back to flinch. "I don't know what's gone through his mind," Sheffield Wednesday manager Danny Wilson told Sky Sports. Wednesday won the game 1-0, but Di Canio dominated the headlines. He received a £10,000 fine and an 11-match ban after the embarrassing incident. 2 months into the season, John Gregory's Aston Villa surprisingly topped the table despite the reluctant sale of star striker Dwight Yorke to Manchester United. Derby, Wimbledon and West Ham also made impressive starts, forcing the usual title favourites to play catch-up. In the bottom half, Middlesbrough, Charlton and Nottingham Forest adjusted to the top flight after promotion from Division 1. Forest were without top scorer Pierre van Hooijdonk, who sensationally went on strike due to broken promises from the club's board over transfer dealings. The managerial merry-go-round continued in October. In a controversial move, former Arsenal manager George Graham left Leeds to join the Gunners' North London rivals Tottenham after Christian Gross was sacked. Leeds wanted Martin O'Neill to replace Graham, but the Leicester boss opted to stay at Filbert Street. David O'Leary took temporary charge at Leeds before getting the job on a permanent basis. Elsewhere, Chelsea enjoyed a 21-match unbeaten league run between August and January to emerge as serious title contenders. The streak included a 1-1 draw with Liverpool, a game in which the club's £5.4 million signing from Lazio, Pierluigi Casiraghi, scored. A month later, Casiraghi's career came to a devastating end after he suffered a cruciate knee ligament injury in a 1-1 draw with West Ham. The Italian sustained the injury during a collision with West Ham goalkeeper Shaka Hislop. He was forced to retire after 10 operations and never played football again. Liverpool's star-studded forward line of Robbie Fowler and Michael Owen wreaked havoc throughout the season. The latter even scored 4 goals in a 5-1 win over Nottingham Forest. Ultimately, however, the Reds' experimental co-manager idea did not work. After a string of inconsistent results, including a 2-1 loss at home to Derby, Roy Evans resigned and left Gerard Houllier in sole charge. Further up the table, Aston Villa signed Dion Dublin from Coventry for £5.75 million. The new man made an instant impact, scoring 7 goals in 3 games. He also netted twice, as Villa came from 2 goals down to beat Arsenal 3-2 in a thrilling encounter in December. Dion Dublin's goals ensured Aston Villa held on to top spot at Christmas ahead of Chelsea, Manchester United and surprise package Middlesbrough. Arsenal, in 6th, had a strong defence, but needed to find form again going forward. In the relegation zone, Blackburn sacked Roy Hodgson and appointed Brian Kidd as his replacement. Southampton struggled once again, while bottom of the table Nottingham Forest welcomed Pierre van Hooijdonk back into the team after the Dutchman agreed to end his strike. In January, West Ham manager Harry Redknapp took a gamble on signing out-of-favour Sheffield Wednesday forward Paolo Di Canio for £1.5 million. "I made a mistake," said Di Canio, who did not play for Sheffield Wednesday again after his 11-match ban. "Now I'm here to play good football for my new club." Di Canio scored his first Hammers goal in a 2-0 win over Blackburn. On the goal-scoring front, Robbie Fowler netted a hat-trick in Liverpool's 7-1 win over Southampton, while Andy Cole and Dwight Yorke formed a powerful partnership up top for Manchester United. Both men were among the goals as Alex Ferguson's side thumped Leicester 6-2 away from home. They also scored twice each in a record 8-1 away win over Nottingham Forest. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer replaced Yorke in the 71st minute and scored 4 goals in a remarkable display. As Manchester United's season went from strength to strength, the same could not be said for Aston Villa. After Christmas, John Gregory's side only picked up 8 points from 12 games. The grim run of form included a 3-0 loss at home to Chelsea, who remained in the title shake-up for most of the campaign. By April, Aston Villa were a staggering 19 points behind league leaders Manchester United. Second-placed Arsenal were ready to pounce if the Red Devils slipped up, while Leeds made a solid start under new boss David O'Leary. Further down the table, Ruud Gullit struggled to make an impact at Newcastle. Everton found themselves in a relegation battle once again, and Charlton slipped into the drop zone. During the run-in, 3 successive draws saw Chelsea lose ground on Arsenal and Manchester United. The top 2 were neck and neck towards the end of the season, with only goals scored, separating them with 2 games remaining. In the final week of the season, Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank scored as Arsenal's 19-game unbeaten league run ended with a 1-0 loss at Leeds. A day later, Manchester United's 0-0 draw at Blackburn meant the title race would go down to the final day. The draw at Ewood Park also confirmed Blackburn's relegation to the First Division. Brian Kidd's men looked set to escape the drop in March, but an 8-game winless run meant the 1994-95 champions lost their Premier League status. Nottingham Forest, managed by Ron Atkinson after Dave Bassett's sacking, were also relegated after losing 2-0 at Aston Villa. Everton moved away from relegation trouble after Kevin Campbell scored 9 goals in 5 games, including a hat-trick in a 6-0 win over West Ham. On the final day, Manchester United hosted Tottenham, knowing they had to better Arsenal's result against Aston Villa to clinch the title. The third and final relegation place would either go to Southampton or Charlton. As Southampton hosted Everton, Charlton knew only a win would do against Sheffield Wednesday to stand a chance of survival. In a chaotic afternoon, Marian Pahars put Southampton 1-0 up against Everton at the Dell, meaning Charlton needed a miracle to survive. In the same minute, dramatic scenes ensued at Old Trafford as Les Ferdinand scored for Tottenham against Manchester United. As half-time neared, David Beckham equalised to set up a tense second 45. In the second half, Andy Cole scored to put Manchester United ahead for the first time in the afternoon. Meanwhile, Arsenal took the lead against Aston Villa through Kanu, meaning one more Tottenham goal at Old Trafford could win the Gunners the league. In the relegation battle, Marian Pahars netted another for Southampton, and Danny Sonner scored for Sheffield Wednesday to send Charlton back to Division 1. As the minutes ticked down, Arsenal hoped for some help from their North London rivals. But it didn't arrive. Manchester United beat Tottenham 2-1 to regain the title from Arsene Wenger's side. The final 1998-99 league table confirmed Charlton, Blackburn and Nottingham Forest's relegation to the First Division. Newcastle, in 13th, had a disappointing season under Ruud Gullit. In the top half, West Ham, Derby and Middlesbrough exceeded expectations, while Christmas League leaders Aston Villa finished 6th. Manchester United, beaten to the previous year's title by Arsenal, clinched top spot in the Premier League for the 5th time in 7 seasons. In an unprecedented finale to the campaign, the Red Devils followed up their title success by beating Newcastle 2-0 in the FA Cup final to complete the league and cup double. But that wasn't all. Despite trailing 1-0 with minutes remaining, Manchester United defied all odds to beat Bayern Munich 2-1 in one of the greatest Champions League finals of all time. In doing so, they became the first team in English football to win the treble. The 1999-2000 Premier League season began with a managerial change at Newcastle. Ruud Gullit controversially started Alan Shearer on the bench for the 2-1 defeat against rivals Sunderland. 3 days later, and after a run of 1 point in 5 games, the Dutchman sensationally resigned. "I cannot see the point why my family has to suffer for my profession," Gullit said, citing media intrusion as his reason for quitting. "For me, my family always comes first, and therefore I took this decision to resign." Caretaker boss Steve Clarke took charge of Newcastle's 5-1 hammering at Manchester United, a match in which the club's one-time striker Andy Cole scored 4 goals. Former England manager Sir Bobby Robson replaced Ruud Gullit and quickly got Newcastle firing again. In Sir Bobby's first home game in charge, Alan Shearer smashed in 5 goals as Newcastle beat Sheffield Wednesday 8-0. While the Toon Army fixed their dugout dilemma, champions Manchester United had a problem of their own to contend with. Mark Bosnich joined from Aston Villa as Peter Schmeichel's replacement. However, an early season injury forced Sir Alex Ferguson to recruit another goalkeeper, Massimo Taibbi, from Venezia. Taibbi made a series of fine saves on his debut to earn the Man of the Match award in a 3-2 win over Liverpool. The game also featured 2 Jamie Carragher own goals. 2 weeks later, in a career-defining moment of horror, the Italian allowed a tame Matt Letizier's shot to squirm through his legs as Manchester United dropped 2 points in a 3-3 draw with Southampton. Despite their goalkeeping crisis, unbeaten Manchester United topped the table 2 months into the season. David O'Leary's young Leeds side looked like serious challengers, while Peter Reid's newly promoted Sunderland were flying high in 4th. The other promoted teams, Watford and Bradford, hovered above the drop zone, and Danny Wilson's Sheffield Wednesday got off to an abysmal start. In October, Manchester United's 10-month league run without defeat ended with a 5-0 loss at Gianluca Vialli's Chelsea. Massimo Taibbi played the full 90 minutes in what turned out to be his final game for the Red Devils. The astonishing win moved Chelsea to within 2 points of Sir Alex Ferguson's side. Later that month, Chelsea faced Arsenal in a battle between 2 title hopefuls. Tor Andre Flo put the hosts 1-0 up at Stamford Bridge before Dan Petrescu added a second after half-time. Arsenal, beaten 3 times in their first 10 games, looked on course for another defeat until Kanu pulled a goal back with 15 minutes to go. The Nigerian scored another in the 83rd minute before completing his hat-trick in stoppage time with a goal from an almost impossible angle. The Gunners' joy was short-lived, however, as they lost the North London derby 2-1 against Tottenham at White Hart Lane 2 weeks later. Elsewhere, Leeds won 12 games out of 14 between August and December to emerge as realistic title challengers for the first time in the Premier League era. The run included a 3-2 win over Newcastle, with top scorer Michael Bridges grabbing the winner. Bridges' former club Sunderland also enjoyed a remarkable first season back in the top flight. Kevin Phillips and Niall Quinn both scored twice as the Black Cats beat inconsistent Chelsea 4-1, prompting serious talk of a top 3 Champions League qualification finish. Leeds fans woke up on Christmas Day with their side top of the table ahead of Manchester United. Sunderland were up to 3rd place by December 25th, while a run of 1 win in 8 saw Chelsea drop to 10th. In the bottom half, Newcastle moved away from relegation trouble thanks to Sir Bobby Robson's impact. Derby, Watford and Sheffield Wednesday occupied the bottom 3 places, with Southampton and Bradford also battling to avoid the drop. After Christmas, Manchester United beat Middlesbrough 1-0 to overtake Leeds at the top. During the game, Roy Keane and several other players furiously chased after referee Andy D'Urso after he gave Middlesbrough a penalty following Jaap Stam's challenge on Juninho. In doing so, Borough became the first visiting team to be awarded a spot kick at Old Trafford in the league in 6 years. "If I had stood my ground, I would have been pushed over," D'Urso told the Mirror. "The best thing for me to do was just keep backing off and backing off. I felt under pressure." Fortunately for United and D'Urso, Mark Bosnich saved Juninho's penalty before David Beckham scored a late winner. Many pundits expected Arsenal to challenge Sir Alex Ferguson's side, but a shock 2-1 loss at relegation threatened Bradford in February all but ended their title hopes. "We play in England, not in dreamland, and I think we have to be realistic," Arsenal manager Arsene Wenger told Sky Sports. The result at Valley Parade came 2 weeks before a top-of-the-table clash between second-placed Leeds and first-placed Manchester United at Elland Road. David O'Leary's Leeds team contained several exciting young talents, including Jonathan Woodgate, Harry Kewell and Alan Smith. Meanwhile, Sir Alex Ferguson's team sheet was notable by the absence of David Beckham, who was not selected amid reports of a bust-up. Without Beckham, Manchester United secured a crucial 1-0 win thanks to a goal from Andy Cole. The victory moved the Red Devils 6 points clear at the top. By the end of March, Leeds were still in the title picture, but trailed their rivals by 7 points. Liverpool, Arsenal and Chelsea battled it out to finish in the top 3, while Sunderland dropped to 7th. At the bottom of the table, Graham Taylor's Watford were on course for an immediate return to Division 1. Sheffield Wednesday brought in Peter Shreeves as caretaker boss after sacking Danny Wilson, while former England manager Glenn Hoddle replaced Dave Jones at Southampton. Back in the title race, Leeds pushed Manchester United close, but ultimately it wasn't to be. A 4-game losing run, including a 4-0 defeat at home to Arsenal, saw the Yorkshire side fall away towards the end of the season. 6 days after that match, Manchester United beat Southampton 3-1 at the Dell to ensure the Premier League title was heading to Old Trafford with 4 games still to play. In the fight to stay in the top flight, Bradford's 1-0 win at Sunderland meant Watford were the first Premier League team to be relegated in the 1999-2000 season. Sheffield Wednesday's fate was also sealed after Thierry Henry-inspired Arsenal sent the Owls down with a 3-3 draw at Highbury. Elsewhere, Bradford secured a vital 3 points against fellow strugglers Wimbledon to keep their survival hopes alive. After the game, Wimbledon sacked polarising boss Egil Olsen and replaced him with Terry Burton. Come the final day, 17th-placed Wimbledon and 18th-placed Bradford were level on 33 points. Wimbledon had a goal difference of -26 compared to Bradford's -31, meaning Bradford needed a favour from Southampton to stay up. Bradford's afternoon got off to the perfect start when David Weatherall scored after 12 minutes against Liverpool. The Bantams knew one Wimbledon goal would change everything, but that goal never came. Wayne Bridge scored for Southampton in the 57th minute before Marion Pahars, Saints' final day hero a year earlier, added another in the 79th minute. As a result, Wimbledon's 8-year stay in the Premier League ended, while Paul Jules Bradford completed the most unlikely of great escapes. After 38 rounds of fixtures, the 1999-2000 season concluded with Wimbledon, Sheffield Wednesday and Watford losing their Premier League status. Newcastle turned things around under the expert eye of Sir Bobby Robson to finish 11th. In the top half, Kevin Phillips finished as Europe's top goalscorer as Sunderland ended the campaign in 7th place, while Arsenal and Leeds qualified for the Champions League. Once again, for the 6th time in 8 seasons, Manchester United clinched the Premier League title, this time more convincingly than ever. Sir Alex Ferguson's men won the league by an astonishing 18 points, leaving the chasing pack wondering what they would have to do in 2000 to 2001 to get close to the rampant Red Devils. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe for more classic football stories. You can also visit deefaxfootball.com for a range of retro gifts, including a 500-question Premier League quiz book and more than 60 nostalgic football canvases. Alternatively, click the link on screen to take another trip down football memory lane.